Hello! So this evening we are going to work through a beginner's guide of sorts for the Cessna Citation CJ4 business jet that comes with Flight Simulator 2024. Now obviously this aircraft has been around since the earliest days of 2020 and it's still a very, very good aircraft and overlooked by lots of people. So if you're looking to move on from general aviation aircraft up to the business jets, this is probably your best route or your best first step. It's a very, very functional aircraft. There's lots and lots to do, lots of functionality, and it's very, very stable. It seems to behave itself. So we're going to work through startup from cold and dark, following a written procedure. I'll show you that in a moment. And we're going to follow a quick route around Arizona. So let's go and have a look at our flight plan. We're taking off from Sedona. We're going to follow a standard instrument departure that we'll program into the aeroplane, and then we're going to go via a couple of waypoints along the way over some fantastic scenery, and then we're going to drop down into Love Field. So we'll shoot the ILS into Love Field as well, just to show as many different things as we can in quite a short flight. So I don't want to keep everybody watching for hours on end. So here we go. Here's the aeroplane sat on the ground. So to get it started, we're going to work, as I said, through a written procedure. I'm just going to show you that quickly. So if you visit my site at johnbeckett.online and you click on Ko-fi, that will take you to a shop. And in the shop, if you go and search in the shop, you can find the startup procedure for the CJ4. So just search for CJ4 in the shop and this will come up. So what do you actually get with the procedure? You get a fully detailed instructions on how to configure views if you wish to, and how to control the views in the simulator, what to do on the walk around, and then a walkthrough of everything you need to do around the aeroplane. But it's kind of the bare minimum to do things in an appropriate manner. So it's telling you what keys to press to move around the cockpit quickly and easily, and where to look, what to press, what to turn, what to configure, and so on and so forth. Even down to programming things into the flight management computer. So we'll work through that together, and I'll put a link in the notes of the video of where you can grab this from, and we'll see how we get on. Okay, so I don't need this open anymore, so I can get rid of the browser. We're stood here in front of the aeroplane on the ground at Sedona. So let's walk over in walk around mode. We'll remove the covers from the canopy and from the pitot tube, and remove the tie downs, and walk around to the engines, remove the engine covers, and I think that's about it in terms of covers on the aeroplane. So to get into the aeroplane, we can just press Shift and C, and that puts us inside. I'll just turn my head tracking off, because that'll make it a little bit easier for us to look around. So the cockpit's very functional. There's a lovely tablet as well as everything else. We're not actually going to be using the tablet, but we'll concentrate mostly on configuring the aeroplane. So obviously you can click on the base of each of the yokes to get them out of the way. So let's work through the checklist together. First things first, we're going to press Shift and 2, which brings us down to this view. We're going to go and flick the battery switch to up or on. We're going to make the emergency lights armed, so we click on the switch for that one. And then the avionics goes to dispatch or down, so we flick the avionics switch downwards, and that essentially gives us power to the flight management computer. While we're configuring the aeroplane, we're going to go over here and look at the exterior lights and put the nav lights on. Then if we press Shift and 3 to come further over here, we're going to go and program the flight. So it's saying initialize position, so we press the soft key next to pause init, and then we select the GPS position, and that puts this is really setting up the inertial reference system. So it's giving it its frame of reference of where we are in the world. We can fill the fields with hyphens if we want, we don't have to. So if we do that, let's go and have a look in the flight plan. We're taking off from Sedona, which is Kilo Sierra Echo Zulu. So Kilo Sierra Echo Zulu. So we're typing into the scratch pad at the bottom of the screen, and then we just select the soft key next to the field, and you will see, because it's not the most study level or high fidelity aircraft, some bits work, some bits don't. Okay, so you may get that. If you try to interact with some of the fields, you may get it saying key not active. Okay, so we'll clear out that message. So then we go through to flight plan, and now we can anything with boxes is a mandatory field. So we want Kilo Sierra Echo Zulu, Kilo Sierra Echo Zulu, and we can populate it. Okay, notice it says there's a modified flight plan now, and the execute button becomes available to lock that in. But we'll finish filling the page in before we say execute. So where are we going to? We're going to Love Field, K or Kilo Papa Romeo Charlie. Kilo Papa Romeo Charlie. And we select destination, and it populates it, and it gives you a reference distance between the two airfields. So then we'll say execute that change. Okay, then we can go through to performance initialization, or we can get there via the perf button. We actually want to go and tell the aircraft how we're getting from the departure to the destination. So we'll press Dep R. This is where we can, it's immediately figuring out, well, we haven't done this yet, so how are we departing? So it knows we're departing from Sedona. So let's go and have a look at our route in LittleNavMap. So we're going runway 21, and we're doing a SID, or standard instrument departure, called Beta 1. So SID, runway 21, and Beta 1. Okay, and then execute the change. Then we can come back to the index for departure and arrival. Select arrival into the destination. And you can see here we're going to just shoot the ILS straight into what is it? Runway 21. So ILS for runway 21. There isn't a standard terminal arrival route, and we're not going to be using any transitions either. We're just going straight in. So we'll execute that change. So then we can go look at the legs page, and we can go next and previous to go through. We've got 4 pages of waypoints all of a sudden. So we can see this is going runway 21, going to Jexi, Gats, Pipo. So let's go and have a look. Jexi, Gats, Pipo. If we go next page, you'll see Sid-T, Biter, and then a gap. So Sid-T, Biter, and so it doesn't know how to get from Biter to Crady. So you can see there, Biter, gap, Crady. We're going to fill that in with a waypoint. So we're going to put in Sierra Echo Zulu, Charlie Yankee. Sierra Echo Zulu Charlie Yankee, and we'll drop that in onto the gap. So that has now inserted it, and we can say execute. So now we have a complete flight plan. If we just carry on through, we can see and make sure there are no more discontinuities, and there aren't. That's fine. Okay. The thing we haven't filled in is the performance data, and it's only cursory performance data. Like I said, this is not the highest fidelity aeroplane. So we can go to performance, and we can say performance initialization, and this is where you're going to put your cruise altitude in. So say for today we wanted to go up to 18,000 feet. We can either type in 18,000, or we could have typed 180, which is the flight level. So flight levels are in hundreds of feet. So 180 times 100 is 18,000. So notice again, we're making modifications when we do this. So we can say execute. We're not going to delve into the takeoff and VNAV because there isn't really much to put in here, and it won't make much difference to the aeroplane. So we could go and look up the weather if we wanted to. We don't really have to. So we just go back to the legs page. So having done all of that, we're ready to go start the engines. So we're going to press Shift and 3 to get a bit of a wider view. And we're going to go and turn some lights on in the aeroplane. So we're going to put the passenger belt sign on and the safety lights on. Then we're going to go and turn the beacon light on outside, the bright light that tells anybody near the aeroplane the engines are about to wind up. Then we're going to come back down to the back of the pedestal, and we're going to hit the right starter button. Having done that, we're going to look up, and you're going to see the N2, or the axle speed through the gas turbine coming up. So when it gets to about 20%, which it's about to do, we can come down and we can open the cover and set the engine to run mode. And then we just sit and wait for it to come up to idle. So it says ignition at the moment on the temperature gauges. So when it gets past about 47, 48% I think it is, this will cut out and it will go back to normal. 49%, I was nearly right. Okay, so having done that, we can go and start the other engine. So same deal, we go and press the left button. We wait for the N2 to get up to about 20%. And then we come down, uncover the engine run stop and switch it to run. Okay, so that's both engines started. Next thing we're going to do, once they've stabilized, so you can see the ignition will go out on the left engine, there it goes. We're going to go to the avionics switch over here, and instead of it being in dispatch, we're going to switch it to the up position. And you can see all of the screens come on, and the inertial reference system starts to align itself. So we just wait for that to happen. While we're waiting, we can go and switch on the standby attitude indicator. So that's down here, the standby display. You can see it's now come on. We can also go and calibrate the altimeters, so we'll press comma and you'll see them all move across the aircraft. And we can control this navigation display if we wish. So if you look up here, you can see the inner knob here is the range. So if we were to do that, you can zoom in and out. Okay, we can also see over here the elevator trims, for example. So I'm going to pull back to pull the elevator trim into the middle of the green area. We're going to move the flaps to takeoff position. So you can also see the flaps indicated here as well. And then we're going to concern ourselves with the mode control panel for the autopilot. So you can see we have not got the flight directors on yet. So if we switch that on, we get the marker showing up in magenta, and we can see the autopilot is defaulting to roll and pitch hold mode. The autopilot isn't on, of course, that's the button on the far right, but we can configure the modes we're anticipating to use. So let's go and have a little look at the airfield. We're going to be taking off, obviously, on this runway, which is 216 degrees. So we're going to go and preset our heading bug to 216 degrees. So we can see that moving around here. So we're rolling the knob and watching the primary flight display. So we want 216. There we go. And we're going to set our altitude. So if you look at the top of the altitude ribbon as we begin rolling this, you can see at the moment we are at 4,800 feet. So let's go up to, we said 18,000, didn't we, on the performance data. So just as a reference of something to climb to. So that's telling us the altitude you want to get to. We haven't told the airplane how to get there. So I think we can do this before we take off. So we should be able to, before we get to that, we can say also, there's a nav button up here that will switch us between radio navigation and GPS navigation. So it will say FMS1 for GPS or VOR1 for radio navigation. So notice when you have radio navigation, you have the course knobs will come into effect, and you can spin around the course you wish to be flying into or out of beacons. If you switch it back to GPS, the course knob's not going to do anything because it is the GPS track, is the direction you're flying. Okay. So, having established we're in GPS mode, we can just press the nav button and you can see it's going to do lateral navigation. So it's going to follow the GPS track. We can also do the heading mode at the same time. So it will follow heading mode until it gets lateral navigation or nav mode, until it's close to the track, and then it will drop heading and go straight for lateral navigation. We can also do the same with the climb rate. So we can say vertical speed, and we can set our vertical speed. So we can roll the up down, and you can see it highlighting. So we can say we want to climb out at, say, 2,500 feet a minute, which is not unusual for a business jet. Yeah, you can see a marker has appeared there. I don't think this aeroplane... Oh, it does have VNAV, so you could also press VNAV and it will go VVS. But we'll just play with either vertical speed or flight level change. Okay, so if you do flight level change, you get to set the speed that you're going to be climbing at. But we'll get to that, because if you press it in flight, it will pick up the speed you're travelling at when you press it. So let's go vertical speed, and we'll say 2,500 feet a minute, please. So we've set lateral navigation, initially heading, then lateral navigation automatically, and then climb at 2,500 feet a minute. Okay, so that's the basics done with the mode control panel. Just looking down through my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything too obvious. We do have various bits and pieces we can switch on down here, so we can put traffic on and off, as you can see. So when the dashes show up, it's actually going to highlight any nearby traffic, and you'll get alarms when anybody gets too close to you. We've got yaw dampers as well. There's a YD button over here, so that comes up on the primary flight display as well. So that means the systems on the aircraft are going to stop any unintended yaw when you're going into or out of turns. Okay, we set the flaps to 15 degrees, that's all done. We can go and put the taxi lights on then. So let's go turn on the taxi lights. And then we're going to go out for the runway before we do anything with the heating for various systems. So I'm going to turn my head tracking on so I can easily see for taxiing. So we're going to be turning right. So let's wind the engines up gently. There's no aeroplanes here, is there? There's no harm in shortcutting across to the main taxiway. There's nothing here in our way. So let's taxi down to the runway at Sedona. It's spectacular scenery around here. You'll get a chance to see it on the way out. This is a stock airfield, by the way. Okay, let's go and get ourselves lined up on the runway. Put the parking brake on for a moment, take the head tracking back off. So we're going to come back down and we're going to go and switch on the pitot heats, and then we're going to turn on the landing lights instead of the taxi lights, and we can put the TCAS lights on as well. Okay, so I'm just checking through. So we've done everything we need to do on the ground. So what we're going to do on the takeoff roll is release the parking brake, which I've just done. We're going to move the throttle smoothly through to 100%. So we'll do that. We're going to keep an eye on the indicated airspeed ribbon. And rotate gently. and gear up. And as we accelerate through, we can lift the flaps as well. Keep an eye on the direction we're going. And we can engage the autopilot. So let's see what it's doing. Remember we set a climb rate of 2,500 feet a minute. So it's stabilizing, look. It's chasing the route. CDI is in the middle. And it's doing its job really nicely. Okay, I'm going to take head tracking off for a moment, because we want to go and have a look outside. Because you don't see scenery like this very often in the simulator. You can see the airfield disappearing behind us. This graphical anomaly inside the engine inlet is really the only downside to this aeroplane. But it's free, so you can't really complain. Okay, we're coming up through 10,000 feet in a moment, so we'll switch the landing lights off as we come through 10,000. In fact, we're within 500 feet, so let's do it. So landing lights were down here, so we just turn them back off. You can see we're heading up towards 18,000 feet on our way to Gats. It's interesting, isn't it, where you see the tiles sometimes in the simulator. Okay, so while we're here, it's worth having a look at this to see what it's saying. So we're approaching Gats. The next leg has already switched over. So we're heading now for Pipo. So it always tells you the next thing it's doing. Yeah, so it's only 5 miles away. And you can see there's the CDI, so that's our relationship to this line. We're slightly off to the left of it, but we're closing in on it. So let's have a look on the map and see where we are. So we're following this nice route round. I'm just looking out. There is a VOR out ahead of us. As soon as we get past Sidti, we'll go and program it in. So 11385. So just to show you how that's done, if you come down to the FMC, I'm trying to remember for myself now. Press the tuning button and then you can program any of the radios in. So we want to program, for example, 113.85, and it's already tuned in. That was a piece of luck there for us that will make our life very, very easy. So once we get flying out towards I don't want to change modes yet because we're still navigating around. What we could do is show you some of the features. So once you're going the direction you want to be going, if we can actually press the heading knob and it will move the heading marker to the direction we're going, because we'll temporarily switch back. So we'll wait for the airplane to stabilize on its way to Sidti. You can see we've also got the wind showing, so there's a slight crosswind, a 20 knot crosswind, which is why the airplane's crabbing slightly. To head towards Sidti, it's crabbing. So we can press the heading knob and the heading bugger swung round, so we can go back to heading mode. So we're actually navigating by heading mode now, not by the nav mode, which means we can go and press nav source and we can play around with the course. So we can point this at the VOR. Yeah, and we know we would like to be travelling on a course of maybe, so if we go measure distance from here to that VOR, it'll be almost the course we want, say 344 degrees. So if we pull that course round 2344 and then press nav, the aeroplane is going to track left to try and stay on the 344 track or radial towards that VOR. So forget about the route that's on here, we're talking about this line. Okay, so you can do radio navigation just like any other aeroplane in exactly the same way as any other aeroplane, following that methodology. If we wanted to switch back, watch what happens to the mode here. If we go and switch straight back to nav mode, or sorry, GPS mode, it's dropped out of the guidance mode and it's just done roll hold. So we're going to carry on turning unless we press nav again. So it's going roll and nav 1. It doesn't know, look, it's taking a while and there it goes, it's captured. So it's just to let you know that it's not going to perform wonders. It takes a few seconds to change modes and to recapture. So we need to think about descending again. The altitude of the airfield, if we show information for Love Field, is 5,000 feet basically. So we're at 18 and we're overspeeding. So I'm just pulling the throttles back. I'm trying to fit as much into this as possible while we're hurtling along. So what's a good way of descending would be speed mode, yes? So speed mode in this aircraft is essentially flight level change. So we're going to tell it we want to come down to, altitude was 5,000 for the airport, wasn't it? So 7.5 would be a good target for us to get to for the ILS. So 2,500 feet by the time we get there. So we're saying we want to get to 7,500 feet and we want to do flight level change. Notice it's put a marker on at the speed we're at. We'll move the speed marker to 250 knots, which will be the speed limit for civil aircraft below 10,000 feet. And then we're going to pull the throttles all the way back. So the aeroplane will maintain 250 knots when it's in flight level change mode. So the amount of power you give it determines your descent rate. So we are hurtling down at 4,000 feet a minute. We could come down even steeper than that if we throw the spoilers out. So this aeroplane has spoilers. So watch, spoilers are on max. And it's going at 8,000 feet a minute. So let's remove the spoilers. So to maintain 250 knots, it's having to lift the nose. Okay, so the aeroplane's fighting like mad to hold 250 knots. It's making a turn, it's still descending. And we've also got various frequencies lighting up. So let's have a look on that nav display. We need to get the ILS ready. So we're still flying GPS. Look, we're turning around this top corner back in towards the airfield. So we want the nav tuned in to 108.5 now. So let's go do that. 108.50. And we're going to drop that onto nav 1. So there's our ILS frequency. We know the runway here is 208, or the glide slope, sorry, localizer is 208 degrees. So we're going to change our course, or we're going to change the nav mode as well. So let's go and do our trick we did earlier. We're going to center the heading bug up the direction we're going, press heading, then we can change the mode of the autopilot and we get to play with the course without the aeroplane being affected because we're in heading mode. Okay. So we want the course to be 208 degrees. So if we roll this a bit further, that's the direction of the runway. So there's our aeroplane, and the runway direction relative to us. Oh, it's warning us, look, about these hills in front of us. So we can't descend any further. So we're going to press altitude hold for the moment. We're not far away from our target altitude for descending, but we'll just hold at 7,800 feet. That's fine. Notice the aeroplane, now it's level, can't do speed mode anymore. So we need to open the throttles. It hasn't got automatic throttles. So we've opened the throttles to 50%, which is more or less holding our speed. So speed mode only works during climb or descent. Once you're in level flight, depending on what your throttle setting is, either the aeroplane will keep accelerating or keep decelerating. So we can change the range here as well, remember. So if you remember, it was the inner knob up here. If you get the mouse in the right place. Let's go and see if we can do this from here. Is it going to let us? There we go. So you can see there's us, there's the turn towards the airport, and there's the airport. So if we go and increase the range on that again, or the other way. So when we get a bit closer, given that we've tuned nav 1 to 108.5, when we get into this kind of range here, you'll see it light up with the radio signal from the runway. So we're flying along about 220 knots, that's absolutely fine. So preparing for landing, we're going to go and put the landing lights back on. We're going to manage the speed, so we'll use the throttles to do that, to get the speed back down. We use the heading mode just to guide us around this corner. Remember, we're still on heading mode. We're not tracking the GPS course anymore. We are ready to go and grab the ILS beacon. Here it comes, look. It's just picked it up. So it's got the localizer first. Hasn't got the glide slope yet. So it shows both here and on here. So this means the diamond is off to the right of the display. It's off the display at the moment. When we get closer, this will turn into a diamond and slide towards the middle. And that will correspond with the CDI, or course deviation indicator, sliding to the middle of the HSI, or horizontal situation indicator. So let's go and get our speed down now. And we'll start descending again, so we can use vertical speed just to gently start descending. So 500 feet a minute. Well, we can go more than that. Let's go for 1,000 feet a minute. Let's pull the throttles all the way back. And it's going to get to 7,500 feet. And you'll see it should go for altitude hold. Look, it's captured the altitude because that was a target altitude. Okay, here comes the CDI. So we could go nav mode, and it's going to capture the localizer once it gets close enough and start turning towards the runway. The glide slope has also appeared now, so I'm going to bring the throttles up to stop us slowing down anymore. So the autopilot is following now the signal from the ILS. So it's captured the ILS localizer, and it's still in altitude hold, remember. We are below the glide slope at the moment. We're still quite a long way out. So you can see over here how far away we are. 14 miles from the runway. So there's a bit better diagram. Look, you can see us coming in on the glide slope, sorry, on the localizer, and then we'll meet the glide slope round about 8 miles out based on the altitude we're at. Going a bit slow, but that's fine. So I'm just opening the engines up gently just to maintain speed. So we've got a bit of a crosswind going on, look, so the aeroplane is crabbing slightly to fight. There's 10 knots of wind hitting the side of us, but it's blustering around, look. So the aeroplane, you can see it's making very small corrections all the time for that wind moving us around. Here comes the glide slope. Now, if we want the aeroplane to fly down the glide slope automatically, we have to engage approach mode. So there's the APPR button. So I'm going to press it. It says GS. So watch what happens. I'm not going to touch any controls. Watch the descent rate. GS is flashing at the top of the screen, and there goes the descent rate, look. And we're obviously speeding up because we're going downhill. So the aeroplane is now chasing both the glide slope and the localizer for us. If we look in front of us, there's the runway. So just to explain that symbology, if you've never had this explained to you before, I'm going to disengage the autopilot.
Autopilot.
So let's go to the right. Notice the CDI is sliding away, and so is the diamond. And the flight directors are saying you need to be turning left. So we'll give it some left stick. It's also saying we're going above the glide slope. So we're going to dive for the floor. Try to bring this back in. Notice we're accelerating where we're having to dive so quickly. So we're slightly off to the left, which is absolutely correct, look. I tried to get both in view so you can see it easily. Slightly off to the left, slightly above. So we're going to go and put the gear down now. And the flaps, the first stage of flaps. And that will give us some drag as well as being able to fly slowly. We get an angle of attack indicator shows up on the left side of the primary flight display. So I'm going to go and turn my head tracking on so you get a nice view of this now. So we're going to put the nose down. Now watch, at the moment we're way above the glide slope, but watch the lights here on the PAPI lights. They will agree with it. They'll go 2 whites and 2 reds when we're in the right place. So now we're too low, look. 3 reds. So I'm just putting the power down a bit. So power to idle. And that bit of a crosswind is kicking us around a little bit, but nothing we can't control. And that's essentially it. It's a very, very smooth, easy airplane to operate. So I'm going to turn the head tracking back off for a moment, just so we can see what's going on in the cockpit easily. So flaps back up while we roll in. And we can go and put the taxi lights back on, turn the landing lights off, and look for the exit. So I guess we go left here. So welcome to Love Field, everybody. So we kind of jam-packed as much as I could into a very short flight, showing bits of radio navigation, bits of ILS, bits of GPS navigation, some sensible ways of switching between the two using heading mode, and obviously starting the airplane up from cold and dark, where I followed a written procedure to help me do that so I didn't forget anything. And I'll put a note in, or a link in the notes of the video, and as a pinned comment, to help anybody that wants a copy of that. So hopefully you found this interesting. The CJ4 is free, it comes with the simulator, and it's very, very good. Okay, parking brake on. And then to stop the engines, we can just go and turn them off here. We move our view slightly, we can flick the switch there. And then we can obviously go around and turn things off around the cockpit. Turn the pitot heaters off. Turn the avionics off. Turn the standby display off. Switch off the emergency lights. The generators are on by default, which is why we didn't have to go and turn them on. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. How we can turn off the master power on the aeroplane. So there we go, cold and dark. You still get the tablet left. This is essentially the same tablet you see in the simulator, which is why I haven't focused on it. So you'll notice if you press tab, it becomes detached and appears in its normal place. So there you go. That's the Cessna Citation CJ4 in Flight Simulator 2024. It was very good in 2020. It's still very, very good in 2024. And it's often overlooked. It's one of the better aeroplanes that comes with the simulator. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. See you again soon. Take care.